In this video, you're going to discover a powerful technique to loosen tight hamstrings that doesn't put your lumbar spine or your hamstrings at increased risk of injury. Hey, what's up? Coach E here from Precision Movement, and welcome to another technique here on YouTube. Today, I'm going to introduce you to a powerful technique that's going to quickly loosen your tight hamstrings. So if you've got tight hammies, then this is the technique for you. Now, most of the time, when you think about hamstrings and how to loosen them up, people think about static stretching, and that revolves around some type of reaching for your toes and holding it for 30 to 60 seconds, whether that's standing, sitting on the floor, or putting one foot up on a chair or step or box or something like that. Now, the problem with those techniques is that the gains that you get are short-lived. Because you're not gaining any strength in those ranges, your brain doesn't see those ranges as ranges that you control, and it tightens the muscle, the tissues back up to whatever it is before you started doing your static hamstring stretches. Plus, a lot of times these stretches put your lumbar spine at risk because you're flexing over and you're rounding your lumbar spine, so that puts a lot of pressure on the intervertebral discs, specifically the posterior aspect of the disc, where you're at risk of disc bulges and herniations. However, the technique that you're going to learn today, called the Hamstring Level I ERE, ERE stands for end range expansion, avoids all those problems and gets you the results that you're after. And it works through three different mechanisms. Number one is the phenomenon of reciprocal inhibition. And that's where when you contract a muscle on one side of the joint, let's say your biceps, the muscle on the opposite side of the joint relaxes. So if you've got some excess neuromuscular tone going to the triceps, then it's a great idea to work on activating the biceps. That's what we're doing here by contracting the quadriceps and the hip flexors to relax the hamstrings. Number two is we're building strength to enter and exit that range, so the brain sees it as range that you own and control, because you can get in there, you've got strength there, and then you can get out of there. Okay, and we're gonna go through that in a second. And finally, sometimes when you've got a muscle that is a little bit taut and you've got that excess of neuromuscular tone, contracting the muscle itself can help to reset that tone. So you ramp it up, get to a little bit of fatigue, and then when you relax it down, that tone goes down below the typical resting level. So there's three different mechanisms by which this technique can help you to loosen those tight hamstrings. And I'm sharing this technique with you to also get your feedback, because I'd love to know what you think about this new format. This is the new format that we're using for the ROM Coach mobile app, and I'd love to hear what you think. So let's get to the technique, and then we'll break down frequency, reps, sets, and that kind of stuff afterwards. The Hamstring Level I ERE is an end range expansion technique to improve your mobility and lengthen those hamstrings. To do it, maintain a neutral spine and straight support leg throughout. The first activation is hip flexion. Fire up the quads and the hip flexors to lift the leg up off the chair or the bench and activate to a high level, around 75 or 80%. Let it down under control. Then hip extension and knee flexion by pushing the heel into the ground with a slight knee bend, firing up the hamstrings. Make sure you're breathing throughout. Finish off with another hip flexion. Lift the leg straight up with the hip flexors and the quads. Hold for one slow breath or about 10 seconds. Strong activation, high level. That's one cycle. You're going to switch sides each cycle. Again, put your foot up on the bench or the chair. Make sure you have a neutral spine and straight support leg throughout. And the first activation is hip flexion. Ramp up the contraction to a high level. Hold those quads and hip flexors, keep them on, trying to get deeper, and then release under control. Then with the slight knee bend, drive the heel into the bench or the chair to fire up the hamstrings. Hold that strong activation and breathe. Finish off again with the hip flexion, where you're firing up the quads and the hip flexors, lifting the foot up and holding. So there you have the Hamstring Level I ERE. What'd you think? Love to hear your feedback on that new video format that we've put together. So just drop a comment down below and let me know what you thought, if you think it's great or if you have any feedback on improvements that we could make. So in terms of frequency, sets, reps, that kind of thing, if you want to gain mobility and you likely wouldn't be here if you didn't, then I suggest you do this 2 to 3 times a week. And in terms of cycles, you work from 2 cycles per leg up to 4 cycles over a 3 to 4 or 5 week period. So just start out at the low end, 2 cycles, and ramp your way up over time. By doing that, you're giving that repeated stimulus that your brain and your muscles need to solidify new pathways and new levels of strength that you're building. And at the end of that, you're going to feel much looser and you're going to have greater strength and range. So like I said before, this technique is from the ROM Coach mobile app. And if you don't have that yet, click the information button up above there and you can go ahead and download this app. It's free. You can get started. You can take the movement age assessment to discover deficiencies and imbalances and get recommended routines to fix those. Or you can just get into the library and browse through the routines and do something that interests you. Okay, so that's all for today's video. Hope you found this enlightening, and I hope you take this technique and add it to your mobility toolbox. So hope to see you next time. Till then, take care. Peace.